Good morning, happy Shochu'sday from Japan. Christopher Pellegrini and Stephen Lyman here with you live in our respective homes. And episode 53, which means it's the beginning of year number 2. That's pretty crazy. That's monumental. I guess it is this technically the 1 year anniversary since it's the 53rd week, which means we started exactly 1 year ago today. Is that correct?
Should be.
It
If
should be,
my
right?
if
If you
my
do,
not enough caffeine brain is working
oh,
correctly.
so perhaps somebody out there can confirm that for us. But 53 episodes. I don't know. When we started this off, Stephen, did you think we were going to make it? How many did you think we were going to do?
Uh, no less than 1,000. So
What? Really? So that's
oh
Stephen's
no,
prediction is 1,000 is the magic number. No less than 1,000.
no, I'm kidding. I did think it would continue. I thought that this was going to become part of our routine. I didn't know if we'd stick with a weekly or if it would become less frequent or more frequent. Uh, didn't Gary V do like an episode a day for a long time
Well,
on
when he
YouTube?
with Wine Library TV, sure.
Yeah, yeah. So we're not that crazy, but I think once a week's a good cadence for us, in the podcast every other week, and yeah, and but how about you, Chris? Are you thought it would flame out? You seem like you were skeptical about it, maybe,
I
or
you know
less
I
optimistic.
I didn't really. I saw it as being very much a product of the pandemic. And I
Mm,
saw it as being a way for us to kick the tires on something that was very, very new. It wasn't new, but it was something that was really gaining critical mass during the pandemic, and we were trying to be a part of it. Uh, I think I was predicting several months of it before it started to taper.
hmm
I didn't predict that it was going to be a steadfast, 100% guaranteed part of our week. Like we plan everything else around it. We make
hmm
sure not to travel during times that will make it difficult for us to do this. If we are traveling, we try to find some interesting thing to tie into it, something that's topical to Shochu'sday. So my prediction now is different. I could see this going for a whole nother year. I
hmm
don't know at what point do we get so busy that we have to seriously consider adjusting the schedule or inviting other people to be a host. I don't know if anybody
Sure.
else out there on YouTube or on Facebook has a prediction for how many episodes they see this going. Then go ahead and pop it in the chat. We'll be happy to entertain that.
Sure.
And whatever you're drinking right now, be sure to let us know what's going on there. From our perspective, we're going to start, as we often do, with an announcement of new content. We have a new podcast that just dropped a couple days ago. Stephen, you want to clue
Sure.
people in to that?
That's right. It's our first deep dive into Barley Shochu or Mugi Shochu, and that's the reason we themed today's episode on the same topic, so we could just give a little bit more context. Maybe talk about a couple of brands we didn't give as much love on the podcast as we probably should have, that sort of
Hmm.
thing, uh, and also just give our less rehearsed thoughts about the category. And as I mentioned on the episode, Barley Shochu was the first shochu I had ever tried, which was Ichigo, their
Hmm.
standard brand. And then um, the other thing was I was doing tastings in New York and I was introducing to shochu and being an ambassador for this category. Whenever I introduced, I would say casual drinkers who had no familiarity with shochu, barley was often what they gravitated toward. It's the one that they seemed to enjoy the most, and I think subconsciously that's a familiarity with beer and whiskey, which are often made with barley as well. So it's in that spectrum as far as I guess flavors and aromas. It's something that's recognizable
Yeah.
often. The vacuum distilled stuff can get really really floral and interesting and quite a bit far afield from beer and whiskey, but I think it's just sort of it's easy to wrap your head around as an American and probably as a European as well
Hmm.
to Canadians, Australians, anybody who might be listening. I think that that expectation is sort of, it's a familiarity issue, right? Where sweet potato can be a little bit of an oddball. Awamori, just because of the fermentation methods and the aromas that come off of it, sometimes can be a little bit of a difficult thing to understand or to start to appreciate. As we know, what was it? Shirayuri won a pretty big medal at San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
And that's an acquired taste on the Awamori.
Well, I don't think it was
side.
I don't think it was their main brand. I think it's a modern take, new bottle,
Sure.
new show,
Mhm.
new personality. I have a bottle of that. I think I have a bottle of it or two bottles of it, but I'm not sure it's exactly the same thing. Need to get my
Okay.
hands on that new. It's a very sleek black bottle, which is very different from their normal brand. So I imagine that it's toned down.
Yeah, you're probably right. But yeah, I guess it's about 40% of the market, right? Barley Shochu. Sorry, coming
Yeah,
back to
maybe a little
to
bit
the
north of
main
that.
topic, and that's substantial, and a lot of well-regarded brands, and in a very wide spectrum, because so much vacuum distillation is used, so much barrel aging is done. Where sweet potato and awamori are predominantly atmospheric distilled and aged in enamel tanks or ceramic pots, right? So there's a little bit more diversity that you get in the barley sometimes, I think, at least with it, as far as the spectrum of flavors and aromas that you might discover, just how wide it is. I mean, sweet potato, which will be the next podcast episode, the flavors and aromas are all over the place, but they generally fit in a pretty small world, I think.
Yeah.
Relative to what you might find in barley.
If you're interested in listening to the Barley podcast, I think the best place for you to go and grab it is on japandistilled.com. So please take a trip over there and click on the top one. As you can see, it says a deep dive into Barley Shochu, episode 13. And this is probably the best place to consume that content purely because of the show notes and how they can add so much context to what is being discussed in the podcast itself. There's also often images that help to, well, they're going to show you exactly what the brands are that we're talking about and some of the parts of the processes. So that would be my advice or our advice for really getting to know what, or be included into the content of the podcast each time. I'm not sure that those show notes don't show up anywhere else people consume podcasts, do they?
They do not. You really have
They're
to go to the
native
website
to
get the show notes. And in the show notes, I tried to list all of the brands that we discussed. I realized I left a couple out of the show notes, so I'll get those in there for the barley episode. That one I was taking my notes and listening during my commute. So I think I must have gotten distracted as I changed trains or something. But the the rice episode, I think I got all of the brands in there. So the barley's missing a couple, and I'll actually talk about one of those brands today that I didn't get listed as we go a little bit deeper into the show.
Yeah. So if you had to talk about some of your favorite things about Barley Shochu in general, and I guess I'll change the banner just to switch us back to maybe, I don't know, this is not booze news yet, but I mean, if we're gonna eventually get into talking about the Japan whiskey and spirits competition, and that's where a lot of barrel aged stuff is shining or always seems to shine. But in your mind, in your palate, what are the highlights of Barley Shochu? What really draws you to it? Is it the barrel aging, since that tends to be a really common conversation when you get into Barley Shochu, or is it something more than that?
I do enjoy the barrel aging. There are a number of aspects, and to me, there's no standout for what draws me to Barley Shochu. I do like in the more full-bodied atmospheric expressions how deep and rich they get. They get quite sweet, but then you're still tasting pretty grain forward, and so I like that about those. But then I think Ichiko or Sanwa Shirui really just sort of opens up everything with their blending. So you can get on the other, almost the other end of the spectrum from those really rich, full-bodied examples is you've got this really, really subtle, elegant aroma profile. You know, and friends of mine here in Japan, when I tell them that I'm a shochu nerd and I start talking about brands, they're like, "Oh, I guess you probably don't drink Ichigo, right? Because it's a mass market brand. It's everywhere. It's in the convenience stores, you know, along with Hakutake Shiro and Kuro Kirishima, right? Those would be the three ubiquitous brands you
Yeah.
see whenever you go somewhere."
Yep.
And I'm like, no, I love Ichigo. And it's not
Hmm.
just because it's the first one I tried, it's because I love the blending that they do and the aromas that they get. It's so much more interesting than a vacuum distilled barley shochu on its own, right? They really make it express in beautiful ways. And so, um, and of what's available in the States, I think my favorite would be Ichigo Kurobin, which I saw
Yeah,
Chris
somebody, I think
Caldwell's drinking
somebody's
that tonight.
drinking that right now. Let me find it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was Chris
Um,
in Knoxville.
oh, there it is. Yep, he was
Yeah, that's
speaking
a
of the devil. Yeah.
got a beautiful bottle and really really lovely expression. And it's funny with Ichigo, when I first tried their different styles that are available in the States, I tried them in separate settings. I didn't sit and do like a flight. And so to me, they all were almost the same. So I was a little bit like, why am I uh, watching, or sorry, why am I uh, paying more for this premium expression rather than just drinking the the main brand? But
Sure.
then when I did taste them all side by side, I did that focused flight. They express so differently. They're really really interesting on their own and in between each other.
Uh,
Just within that Ichigo, you know, if you compare the Kudo bean to the Frasco to Silhouette, they're all different and
yep.
they're all lovely. So that's a really nice thing about barley shochu as well. And then of course the barrel aging, right? Once you put it in a barrel, you start to get those vanilla notes, and you start to get um, you know, some of the things you would expect from oak. Again, it doesn't express like a whiskey. We've talked about this many times on the show before, because of the single distillation. It's got so much grain, so much barley that shows through the wood. Where once you double, triple distill as whiskeys are made, you end up getting much more the expression of the wood
And much more
than the grain.
quickly.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. Yeah. How about you? What draws you to barley shochu?
Well, if I think about some of my favorites, I immediately Chingu comes to mind. Chingu is an amazing expression from Omoya on Iki Island. I'm a big fan, and I love the depth that comes from the rice and its mixture with the barley. I enjoy the light tropical notes, the fruit notes, and there's so much depth to that I really often am drawn to Iki Shochu, or the barley shochu made on Iki Island. And then yeah, I'm a fan. I love what Ichigo does, and I love how they are attempting to innovate. I appreciate the fact that they have got the blending completely on point, and I also like that they're going for deeper, richer flavor profiles than they ever used to. So yeah, I'm a fan of all of that. I also, we were talking about this last night. Distillery that doesn't get enough respect is Nishi Yoshida in Fukuoka.
Mm-hmm.
Nishi Yoshida making, what was that brand that you were drinking the other night at 40? That was
Oh,
Jakua Umbaku, right?
that was Jaku and Baku Premium. It was
Premium.
43%. That's barrel aged, and it really just reminded me again how these barrel aged barley shochus express as shochu rather than as a whiskey.
Yeah, and I guess we can use that as a segue into the Japan whiskey and spirits competition. The whiskey results were released a week or two ago,
Mm-hmm.
if memory serves, and then the shochu results, and maybe other spirits as well. I haven't been paying close attention. You and I only judged on the shochu side, but the
Mm-hmm.
shochu results came out, and there was a nifty post over on No Communication that by Whiskey Richard that just gave the top scores, not necessarily the what would be considered the top. I guess they probably all got golds or superior golds, but just the top score getters from the entire shochu side of things, and it was very interesting just because there's so much barrel aged product in that top 10. I mean, how many non barrel aged products were there? One or two?
Sure.
It was kind of like, oh, all right, I see what people on these panels enjoyed.
Yeah, I think that's what happens when you've
You got whiskey
when you have
guys
whiskey
judging
guys
shochu.
judging. That's right. Yeah.
Yep. I guess for the second year in a row, we had a barrel-aged Kokuto Shochu taking in top honors. That meaning highest score out of everything that was judged in the Shochu category. And this year it was, which one was it? It was by the makers of Lento, right?
Is that right? Let me see. Best of the best. Where is that? Sorry.
Steven has the list pulled up.
Well, I do, but it doesn't list it as the overall winner. Is that right? The best.
Yeah, whatever the top score getter was.
Got it. Yeah, no, it was Benny Sango actually.
Benny Sango. Okay.
Yeah, are they? Is that made by?
What's the name of the distillery? Is it listed?
It does not list it. At least not in Romaji. I can't necessarily read the kanji.
Okay, I thought it was made by the Nantoka Kaiyun.
Let me see.
Blah 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 place, which for me that says Lento. But anyways, so that's a barrel aged Kokuto Shochu, which I don't think was in any of my flights. I don't know. You ended up getting more Kokuto on your side.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm supposed to admit.
Okay, yeah.
This,
Maya just gave us the verdict. It is made by Amami Kaiyun. You know, it's obviously the morning because she got her vowels slightly mixed up, but we appreciate you, Maya, as always, for
thank you.
Jumping in there with the assist.
Yeah. Then that Benny Sango, that was one of the first Kokuto Shochus that was recommended to me by someone in Japan as something that they really loved. In fact, it was our songstress who does the theme music for our show.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah. He lives in Amami, and she was like, "You've got to find Benny Sango." And
the judges
Tomoko Miyata. Sorry, it took me a second to find her name. I actually know her quite well, but it's early.
Still on the first cup of coffee.
That's right. But Benny Sango, I remember she specifically said, "Please take a bottle back to New York and give it to the ladies at Uminoye as a thank you," because she used to, when she lived in New York, she was a regular there. And so, yeah, that's the first time I'd ever heard of the brand. And then now it's taking top honors at Tokyo Whiskey and Spirits competition. So, yeah, I can show, actually, let me share my screen so we can see.
Yeah, let's go through the list together so that everybody can see what the top score getters were. And again, if more than one of these is in the same category or subcategory, they might not have all come out with, I guess maybe it's Superior Gold.
Yeah, so these are the Superior Gold, which actually...
okay.
All of these got Superior Gold.
Okay.
What I think, just for people living overseas, the things that we're certain are in the U.S., obviously this is Hyakunen no Kudoku, but barrel-aged barley, that we do talk about on the podcast episode. Mm-hmm. Probably one of the top 2 most famous barley shochu in Japan. And this is a blind tasting, right? This is a blind evaluation. So the fact that it took Superior Gold is confirmation that it's a nice drink. Actually, from the same distillery, we've got Naka Naka and Imo Shochu. Also from...
where? No, that's Kiroku.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kiroku. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, I had Naka Naka in my brain because of barley. Yeah, Kiroku. Also from Kuroki Honten. That is available in the US, I know. A couple other things that are definitely available is Beni Iko. Is that Beni Iko? No. What is that?
Which one?
No, it's a barley expression in the Ikomon bottle. That is not available.
It is Ikomon. Which one? In the top row on the right side?
Oh, sorry, you can't see my... Yeah, top right. I guess you can't see my mouse. Interesting.
No, I can't see your mouse. That's true.
Yeah, top right. It's an Ikomon bottle, but it says barley, so I don't know that brand.
Yeah, I mean the Ikomon is a full line of products. So
right.
Yeah,
that's a brighter red. I have seen that actually in convenience stores. I think I bought it once before I could read Japanese, thinking it was sweet potato. When I got it back to my hotel room, I was in for a surprise. This
And
is, I'm going to let
yeah,
you pronounce the en
envereshida. Yep.
envelhecida.
Denen envereshida.
Now it looks like the 40% expression, because that's not the same packaging as the
It's not the
25% that I have here at
25.
home.
No,
And then Tenshi no Yuwaku, also available in the States. Angel's
that's in
Temptation.
the yeah.
Center row,
Just so
far
that
right.
people at home can follow along. And Tenshi no Yuaku is the second row down on the right side. That's
Yep.
available
Yes,
in the
sir.
States because we can't see your cursor for some reason. That's a
It's
oh,
too
now I
big.
can see it.
Can you? Okay, it's back.
Well,
So,
now I can't.
interesting.
It's so weird. I don't know. Maybe
All right.
people in other parts of the world can see it.
Sure.
Another interesting one
Yep.
here, for me anyway, is 3 lines down on the left. 3 lines down on the left is a Tensei product.
Yeah, that is from Tensei.
And so that's pretty cool that got up there really high. And then last year's winner is the last row on the left. That's Sato no Akebono Gold. And then right next to that is one of our favorites. It's Chiran Tichu down there on the bottom in the green bottle.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, that's a sweet potato shochu base with green tea added to basically a third fermentation before distillation.
And that one's coming, folks.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
look forward to it.
Yeah, that'll be in the States in the near future. This is another one that's available in the States. Right next to the Kiroku is Satsuma Shiranami Genshu,
So
which is also available overseas. That's another export brand it's on here.
it's
And
that
then,
short brown bottle that has backlighting. Second one over from the left on the second line down.
that's right.
Yep.
And then the overall class winner is the bottom right corner Beni Sango, which again is repeated here, and that is
now I can see your mouse.
barrel aged Kokuto Shochu
There it is.
that Tomoko had recommended.
I
Yeah,
like
so
that bottle is interesting with the
It
almost
is.
hourglass shape.
I think that's the same bottle that the Jakunbaku Genshi was in.
I think
Unfortunately,
you're
I've
right.
already recycled that bottle. But
Yep.
yeah, really nice drink. I judged Kokuto this year, and that was certainly a standout in my flights. So I can understand why it got top prize. Yeah, a few others. We'll drop this link in the chat so people can have a
Yeah,
look.
do that
for
right now.
themselves. Yeah, I just did that.
So you'll notice if you're keeping score at home that there's a lot of barrel aged product in there, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Which
There is.
it didn't really matter if it was a barley shochu, a sweet potato shochu, or a kokuto shochu. If it was resting in oak for a while, that added like 10 points to the score. I think bumped it
Yeah,
up a class.
That's what happens when you have whiskey drinkers as the primary judges, I guess.
I think,
and also
I
higher
suspect
proof.
you're correct.
There's not a lot of 25% alcohol in that grouping. A couple of the others we didn't mention are also Genshu or undiluted. A couple of them are long aged. So yeah, certainly interesting things to explore. And it's nice to know that some of the export brands are winning prizes in Japan. Right? That's a good thing for.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah,
For
people are choosing
to have,
correctly and wisely.
as we know, there have been some huge swings and misses from international competitions being judged by non-Japanese, and this list I think is a little bit more trustworthy given some of the things that won. I don't see any oddballs in there that I'd be like, really? Why did that win? Right. And so I think that's a credit to the Tokyo Whiskey and Spirits competition. And is this the second year they've done shochu? Is that right? Or have they done it for longer? Yeah.
No, it might be the third actually.
Okay. Yeah. Christopher and I do judge for them. We were not part of the final decision panel, though. We weren't in the group. And Maya actually judged as well.
Yeah,
But,
Maya, who's she's on Facebook watching right now. Yep.
Yeah, that's all So, but we aren't final round judges. We're just preliminary round judges. So it was whiskey drinkers who were judging in the final round. So that's probably why all of the barreled stuff ended up getting double gold or
Yeah,
superior gold, I
that's
guess
right.
they call it.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Just
we've
I
got a
put the link for the Whiskey Richards communication
yeah.
English
Thank you.
language explanation. That doesn't have bottle photos, but you can probably go back and forth and kind of
You know
compare.
what? You only put that on the Facebook side. I think. Let
Oh,
me.
did I? Oops,
Yeah,
sorry about that.
can you do that again and then little drop down,
Yep,
send it to
got it.
the YouTube
Yep,
side
there
as well.
now
There you
it's
go. Okay, so
yep.
now
Okay,
everybody has it.
great.
From speaking of YouTube, Ian, who's joining us on the YouTube side, and I put his comment up. He asked the question: do barrel aged expressions lean more towards atmospheric or vacuum distillation? Great question.
Excellent question. And to my knowledge, it's a complete mixed bag. I've had lovely examples of both. Do you think it leans in one direction or the other?
No, I mean I can't. I think you're right. I mean I'm just thinking of. I mean when you're it depend on the in terms of the base spirit when you're talking sweet potato, which tends to end up in oak a lot less frequently than you're talking atmospheric.
Hmm.
Envelhecida is a sweet potato shochu that spends time in oak, and that's that's atmospheric.
Is it?
It, I believe it is.
Interesting.
Am I wrong?
I'm I'm completely fascinated how they get those aromas then. I think it's vacuum, but I guess we'll have to confirm that.
Yeah, we will need
I'm
to.
just doing
Maybe
that based on
maybe
the
Maya
profile.
can jump in on that one, but since she's the Kagoshima pro, then you have, or it could be a blend too. It could be a blend
Yeah,
of vacuum
that's
and
fair.
atmospheric
Yeah.
distillates. And then
Tenshino
you move up
Iwaku, I
further
think, is
north, and you're
atmospheric.
getting into rice and barley, and naturally that's going to be a lot more vacuum distilled product. But
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, that's a good question. Um, the Kuradashi Genshu from Satsuma is atmospheric.
Yeah, but not
That's
barreled, despite the color of the glass.
Oh, okay. All right, my
Yeah,
bad.
yeah, that's a good one also. But yeah, it looks barreled because of the amber bottle, but it's actually a clear spirit.
I haven't. The last time I had that was when I was in Hawaii, which was the first time I went to Hawaii many years ago. So I guess I'm
Oh,
conflating it with something else.
that's been a while
Conflating it
then.
with Satsuma's more famous uh, barrel aged product, which is their barley, their cask aged. What's it called? Kanoko, which
Kanoko,
is
yeah.
that's available in the States too. Am I right?
Yes, it is. Yep.
And we've got another question here about let's erase that word malted from the whole mix because you can't use malt to make shochu.
Yeah,
But it's koji barley shochu being double distilled or distilled higher ABVs and bottled as single malt. No.
yeah. No, it couldn't be bottled as a single malt because it wouldn't qualify. Um, but you do get double distillation, but then it's not shochu. So it sort of doesn't work that way,
It's
right?
it's such a tight. It's the parameters for being called shochu are so tight and restricted. Once you get into double distillation, you start dealing with ABVs up in the 50% range, and then it's
Hmm.
out. You can't bottle it. You can't even store it as
Yeah,
shochu. You'd have to have another license to age the spirit at that ABV,
that's right.
because everything coming off the still is taxed,
Hmm.
and if it's coming off, you, basically you've got very little wiggle room. So if you're operating under a shochu license, that has to come off the still at under 45% alcohol, and it's going to be taxed immediately.
Hmm.
So if you're going to get into barrel aging, cask aging the spirit, you've already paid the tax, so you're not recouping that investment in the spirit for years to come. It's a pretty significant decision, which is why a lot of smaller makers can't really entertain those thoughts.
Yeah, or the
But
barrel aging doesn't last very long either, right? It might be for a year
that's true.
rather than
You're
going
talking
to
like only a year in oak, And that's going to give a little bit of a straw color to the spirit. It's going to leave a little bit of, maybe depending on the wood and how tired it is, you might get a little bit of the vanilla and cherry notes from the oak, but it's just a little bit of seasoning almost on the spirit rather than any really strong effect that we get from the whiskey world. And just to reiterate, yeah, the word malt can't really be used in the shochu world. It's malt is a different process.
Common mistranslation
But
early on. I think when the Japanese were looking at export and trying to figure out a way to explain shochu and awamori to foreigners, they latched on to malting because you're extracting sugars from a grain. But that was without understanding or without really considering the fact that they're extremely different processes in how those sugars are extracted. Maybe shifting gears, you mentioned that Tensei was one of the winners of a medal, a superior gold. I just wanted to come back to this guy, Mugi Hoka. This is roasted barley shochu. So 8% of the mash bill is roasted barley versus steamed. And the reason I bring it up is I had this the other day in iced coffee. And it was so good. It was really, really good.
I haven't tried that before.
And I know as a
Why
I
was
just
it so good?
So I just drink my iced coffee black, right?
Okay.
And I actually, it's summertime, so I'm drinking iced coffee. And I usually look at my local coffee roasteries. I look for whatever their iced coffee blend is, right? So I just get something that's pretty fruity, mild, easy drinking coffee that drinks nicely on ice. And when I added the Mugi Hoka to it, it gave it some depth and a sweetness, right? And it was a splash. It wasn't a lot, but it just really, really made for a lovely, lovely drink. And I was just so impressed because I've had awamori coffee, but I hadn't really explored.
That's great too. Yeah,
that is great. But I hadn't actually explored barley shochu or rice shochu or sweet potato shochu in coffee. So that was a really nice discovery with Mugi Hoka, which is also from Tensei. So they're a sweet potato shochu maker down on the southern coast of Kagoshima, but they just make this really, really lovely.
Not the southern coast; they're on the east side.
But you're looking south from the water.
Sure, it's Shibushi, which is not southern coast though. It's over there on the side.
Okay.
It's the southern part of Kyushu, absolutely, but not of Kagoshima.
Yeah. All right. Moving on, one other barley shochu. Actually, this would be what I've opened recently.
Let me switch the banner. Hold on, let me switch the banner.
Okay.
Okay, switch the banner. Whew, got it.
Newly opened. I found this yesterday and opened it yesterday. This is the summer version from Yanagita. His barley shochu. Blue bottles signify the summer releases. 20% alcohol from Yanagita and Miyazaki. It's his daughter on the label. I don't know how well you can see.
It's shiny, but that works. That kind of works.
Yeah, he's got his little daughter on there. Sweet little girl. And this is called Natsu no Akakage. So in the States, there's a brand called Aokage, which is so good. It tastes like a roasted barley shochu, but it's made from steamed barley. It's just where as we talked about, I think on the podcast episode, he's an engineer, and so he's designed the interior of his still where the steam nozzles are adjustable. So he points the steam nozzles at the side of the still, and he caramelizes the fermentation through that high pressure steam to give the roasted quality. That's Aokage, which is essentially, kage is, I believe, like horse hair. It's hair from a specific mane from a specific horse that's, I guess, famous in Miyazaki. I don't know if it's famous because it's a horse or if it's famous because it's delicious. But that was a Japanese food joke, by the way.
I was reading another comment that just came through. I missed it.
So Aokage is that roasted expression, really, really lovely drink. Akakage, red horse mane, is a more standard barley shochu expression that he also makes. So this is Natsu, which is summer no Akakage. So the red horse mane summer version And the labeling has nothing to do with that, but it is a really, really pretty label. He recommends it with soda for summer. Had it yesterday, sipping on it while we were on a Zoom together, and really, really nice drink. I don't know if you can see, but there's oil droplets in the neck of the bottle, so very, very lightly filtered.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a
it's
hand skimmer, isn't it?
yeah, lots of grain notes and quite sweet. So it's a nice drink. So obviously not available overseas, but if you happen to be in Japan, you may want to see if your local bottle shop can get you some.
Yeah, if you're here basically what in May and June, May, June,
Mhm.
July, you may have a crack at getting your hands on bottles of these slightly lower proof, often 40 proof summer shochus. They tend to be intended for. They tend to be quite aromatic, and they often are intended to be enjoyed on the rocks or with bubbles, and lots of tropical notes, lots of light fruity esters that
Mhm.
do kind of lend themselves to warmer temperatures, and blue bottles everywhere. Blue
That's
bottles
right.
everywhere. Yeah.
Yep.
My newly opened is this barley shochu, which is an Oita Mugi barley shochu, 100% barley. It's really hard for I'm not even sure I have the name right, but this is for me this is Anshin In Kura, made by Agataya, and I could very easily be slightly off with my reading, but I remember that this is a blend. This is a blended. It's atmospheric and vacuum distillates blended together. White koji, quite fruity. Um,
Mhm.
there's a graininess to it, but then a little bit of banana. And I've been drinking it oyuwari as I'm sure will surprise no one. And it's all right. I think it's actually pretty easy to get your hands on because I remember seeing this really old school label a couple of times, although I do not remember where I picked up this bottle. But it's been in the house for a while, so I was like, let's just crack that open. And I'm happy with my choice.
Nice. Yeah, I think I've seen that label. I don't know specifically whether or not I've tried it before, but the label does look familiar. I'll have to see if it's available around me. Um, question in the actually, can I
You want to
do
throw it
this?
up there?
Oh,
Yeah, what you
yeah.
got?
Oh, I can do it too while I have some controls. Um, for roasted barley shochus that are 100% mugi, is it very common for just a portion of the mash to be roasted mugi, or can distillers kojify roasted mugi? I don't think that
Good
you'd be
question.
able to grow koji on a roasted grain because you would have lost the water content that you need for the koji. So it's the koji itself would be grown on steamed grains, but you can make barley koji, and like in the example of Mugi Hoka, only 8% of the mash bill is roasted. So you've got your barley, it's 100% barley. So you get your barley koji, which is steamed, 8% roasted barley, and then the remainder of the barley added to the second fermentation is actually unroasted or steamed barley.
Mm-hmm.
So that is typically how it's made. I've never heard of a roasted barley shochu that starts with a rice starter fermentation.
I haven't either. That I didn't. Now that you mention it, I've never heard of one either.
Yeah, I mean there aren't many of them, right?
No,
We've got
they're not.
Aokage Expresses is one, even though it's not technically roasted. Then you've got the Baisen Mugi Kintaro from Nishi Yoshida, who you mentioned earlier, and Kintaro is
Sure.
available overseas.
Right.
And then Mugi Hoka, and I know there are others. I've seen Baisen Mugi labels, but I
Yeah,
can't
Kenjo
remember
makes
the.
a couple.
Okay.
Yeah, up in Fukuoka. Yeah, there are a few out there. I guess it is a little bit more challenging to work with. I guess you may. I'm not sure. Also, this is a question I have. Does the roasting process actually modify the starches in the grains to the effect that because you're basically you're baking them almost, does that
Hmm.
make it harder to sacrifice them later? I actually I don't have the answer to that. So
Right.
that's a
I
question I'm
don't
going to need. And
either.
by as such, does it reduce your potential ABV at the end of fermentation, which obviously is precisely nobody's goal when making alcohol to have a lower alcohol content. So this is a great Ian, thank you for that question because it makes me ask a couple of questions as well.
Sure. Yeah. Next time we have the ear of a barley shochu maker who makes roasted barley shochu, we'll be able to ask.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
yeah, that was definitely a good question. All right. Anything else on your mind? We're up on 40
Episode
minutes
53.
already.
That's on my mind. Start of year number 2. We're enjoying this increased banter in the comment section. That's for sure, both on Facebook and on YouTube. So have at it. We love it when people are commenting, talking to each other, reacting to things that they've seen, things that they have heard, and we're happy to pull some of those things into our own discussion, as you've clearly seen. And this has turned all of a sudden into a 40-minute episode. I thought at 10 minutes we were halfway done, but yeah.
Then we got talking.
Never let people interact with us from the comment section, and then all of a sudden we're at 40.
Yep.
So,
but no, another fun one for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully that there was some value there for people in around the world who are tuning in. Thank you very much for joining us again. Please go check out the latest episode of the Japan Distilled podcast and let us know what you think. Leave a comment wherever you can, and we'd love to continue the conversation. That conversation can take place on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram as well, where we spend a lot of our, I don't know what you would call it, free time? Not really free time. Downtime? Not really downtime either. It's time. And we will comment, we will interact, and love to get nerdy questions over there as well. I'm going to put a little bit of this Barley Shochu in my glass so that I can Kanpai with everybody. Everybody out there, you ready for the closing Kanpai?
Nobody answered.
Nobody, I can't hear anybody. Shout! All right, folks. Thank you very much for joining us from both Stephen and I here in Japan. To all of you out there and everybody else who will be tuning in later, a very hearty and heartfelt Kanpai.
Kanpai.